I don't know if you're just joining me. This is going to be about 30 minutes, 45-minute analysis of the round 5 candidates game between Nepomniachi against Wang Rd5. And I'll be going through the game. It's ideal for new players, especially young players as well. Going through some simple tactics and some positional ideas as well. Let me start the timer. So you've got 5 minutes, make yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a drink, and we'll be starting in a few minutes' time. Come on, boy. How do I get that to work? Nice. There we go. Looks like we're all ready. And obviously, as you know, we've already, the candidates tournament, if you've been following some of the chess websites, has already finished. Well, I say finished, it's been postponed after round 7. Because they couldn't guarantee that the participants could actually get home afterwards, because it would have been lasting for another week and a half or so. Had another 7 games to go, and that happened a couple of days ago. It seems you only play 1 game a day. They didn't know what the situation across the world was going to be like, so they've postponed it, which has made a massive difference to. Well, there was a big hoo-ha about whether Timur Radjabov should have been, I don't know, was he kicked out or did he withdraw originally? And so therefore Maxim Vachier-Lagrave got his place instead, and maybe he wants to be put back in as part of the setup next time around. Who knows? Who knows? Again. Right, there we go then. So yeah, if you just skip forward for the first 5 minutes, just to recap, as white here is Jan Nepomniachi. Many of the children in my chess club seem to know him as the guy with the man bun. And they try to remember his long surname compared to his very short first name. And then as playing black is one of the two Chinese participants is Wang Hao. And he's got some great photos online. I've chosen one with his two hands in the air. I don't know what he's trying to gesture about in that picture, but he seemed to have a different gesture in every single picture. There's on him. He seems to have a very expressionistic face, shall we say, which is definitely good for the cameras. And I guess a lot of my students seem to like him because of that. When I told them about all 8 candidates that were playing, and they seemed to like the photos of him, or they did like Nepomniachi's mandal. So this game was from round 5. I'm going to tell you the result at the start. Jan Nepomniachi is white, beat Wang Hao as black. And the reason why I'm going through the wins first is because there's not as many wins as there is draws. In this particular round, the other 3 games that were being played were all draws. And so here Jan Nepomniachi managed to extend his lead at the time in the tournament by getting a victory with the white pieces. At the very, very high level, white is generally trying to win the games, so it's not unexpected that he was pushing for the win at that time. So let's go through the game, and of course you can ask any questions on the way through. Obviously, if you're watching afterwards on the video on record, then by all means you can still post some questions afterwards to see what's going on, and ask any questions about any particular moves that you're unsure of, and I might go back to it in the later stream or answer you directly. So here we had standard opening for whites of 1e4. Putting the pawn in the centre straight away. This is the most common move in chess, and very popular. And then black responded by putting their pawn in the centre of the board. And this is how most games are starting these days, and have done for many, many years. White plays knight to f3, obviously attacking this pawn on the e5 square. And then black played the slightly more uncommon knight to f6. So rather than choosing to defend this pawn with the more common knight c6, black played knight to f6, and this is called the Petrov defence. Now I quite like the idea of the Petrov defence because here black is saying, do you know what, I'm not going to bother defending my pawn, I'm actually just going to attack your pawn instead. Oh, not that one. This one here. So if you take my pawn, I'm going to take your pawn. And I quite like that in chess because a lot of the times people get too bogged down defending all the time, and actually you really want to try and make sure that you're the one doing the attacking and your opponent's doing the defending. But of course that's up to you. Here white plays with the main lines, which is knight takes pawn, and then black plays the move d6. It's really important to know, and I guess part of me would actually probably recommend playing the Petrov as black because it's quite unusual, especially in the United Kingdom, for the Petrov to be played. It's not a very common opening, so therefore you're kind of taking your opponents out of theory most of the time, or you're going to know a lot more than they do. But it's played at the very highest level. Here we've got 2 of the top grandmasters in the world playing it. Another one that plays it is Fabiano Caruana. He plays this quite a lot as black, and he's got some great results with it. Really made it into a fearsome weapon. And so it's perfectly sound to play and played at the highest level, but for some reason it isn't quite as popular at the lower level. I do have one of my students that I coach who plays it, and he tends to get some very good results with it, and I think he swears by it as well. He's very happy to play it all the time. But one of the first things that you'll learn about the Petrov is that when somebody does recapture your pawn on e5, you could take, do not do this move, knight takes pawn straight away. Or if you do, then you need to know what to do about it. Because after queen e2, a little trap has been set. The queen is attacking the knight, and you don't want to lose your knight. So the knight, let's say you go backwards, and then here's the little trap that you need to see. If you can spot the move, then by all means just pause the video to see what you think it is. And actually here, white's got a really nice discovered check by playing knight to c6 check. And you see the queen's attacking the king, and why is this a good idea? Because you can get out of the check. Remember, there's 3 ways to get out of the check: avoid, block, or capture. Well, here the king can't avoid the check by moving away. You can't take the queen because it's, well, there's nothing to capture it. So your only option is to block. You could block with the knight, well, it just gets taken by the queen again. You could block with the bishop, or you could block with the queen. And the idea is that the problem, whichever you block with, this knight will take the queen, next go. Or if you block with the queen here, the knight can take the queen that way as well. So it doesn't really matter what you do. Black's losing their queen, and we've only got 5 moves played on the board. Really bad idea to do this as black. Not to put you off it, of course, but you will know what to do rather than taking the pawn straight away. There were other checks here. You could go to here check, but there's none better than winning the queen, so that would have been the best move. So black knows, of course, what to do. They're not going to fall for this trick at the Super Grandmaster level. In fact, at club players level, you're going to know what to do here. You're not going to fall for that trick. Although I think I did fall for something very similar in a Budapest once, but I shouldn't have done. But it's a nasty little discovered check, that is. So black plays pawn to d6, attacking the knight first of all, forcing the knight to come backwards, and then finally black recaptures the pawn. It's a little bit safer to recapture the pawn now that you've driven this knight back to f3. And this is all well-known theory. Everybody, you can find this in lots of books. You can probably find videos online if you just Google like Petrov defense. You'll find this position and maybe even a few more moves after that as well. White plays the move pawn to d4. Obviously, he's already had one pawn in the centre that's been removed, and he takes the opportunity to put the other pawn into the centre of the board. And black plays pawn to d5. And you might think, well, hang on a minute, this pawn's moved twice, once and then twice. That's not usually a good idea. Why didn't black develop a piece there? He could have got one of his bishops out, maybe got ready to castle. And you're exactly right. There's been a lot of pieces here moving twice in the opening, which you do not want to do in general. The only reason why it's okay here is because, well, the knights have both moved twice. Well, the white knight's moved 3 times, but it's come back after being attacked. The black knight has moved twice. And I guess if your opponent moves a piece twice, then it kind of gives you a little bit of liberty to move your piece 2 times or 3 times in the game. And that's just the way that this opening goes. If you know the opening, it's you're following a book line or you're following some sort of theory or some video that somebody's put on online, then it's okay to do so at this stage. Obviously afterwards, now we're trying to not move any more pieces. We're trying to get our king castled as quickly as possible. Yes, hello, pass pawn 999 9. Nice to see you following again. And here we've got obviously both pawns in the centre. And actually this looks a little bit, very similar pawn structure to the French defence exchange variation. So I play that as black, I'll play the French, and so if somebody plays the exchange variation, I'll get this exact same pawn structure. What I mean is that there's no pawns on this e-file at all. They're all gone. And we'll have 2 pawns in the centre on d4 and d5, exactly the same. The main difference, and this is maybe why the Petrov is just that a little bit better actually, than playing at the black side of a French exchange, is because you can see here this black knight is on a beautiful square in the centre of the board. And this is the main reason why black's chosen to move their pawn 2 times, because it's protecting this knight. And this knight is a beast. It's covering loads of squares all the way around in white's camp, and it could potentially cause some problems if white gets a bit careless. Of course, this is still well-known theory though, so white knows what to do, and white's going to attack that knight pretty much straight away, just to try and remove it or get black to move it backwards, or get black to swap it off all of the white's pieces. And white, being white, they always get to move first. They'll generally have a slight lead in development as well. So here white plays bishop to d3, kind of as expected, but still mainline theory here. Obviously attacking the knight, getting ready to castle the king as quickly as possible. If you're new to chess and you're not getting your king castled, you need to do that pretty quickly in your games. And then black plays bishop to f5, and this is kind of like the first kind of slight deviation in the game. Black had a few different moves that have been tested and tried beforehand. Bishop to f5 is one of the moves that was an option here for black. But obviously the bishop defends the knight, so keeping it on that forward central square. So this is the only piece in somebody's opponent's half of the board, so the bishop's doing a good job of defending it. White chooses castle. Black gets his dark square bishop out to e7, really just to get himself ready to castle as well.
white plays rook to e1. Obviously, if you're new to chess, you want to make sure that getting your rooks on open files. And you can see that actually at the end of this open file at the moment, there's the black king, and that's what you want to be targeting. But of course, it's also got its first kind of thing that it's targeting is that knight that's on the e4 square. Currently, white's got 2 pieces attacking it, the bishop and the rook, and black's got 2 pieces defending it, the bishop and the pawn. So you do need to also learn how to count up how many pieces you've got attacking a piece and how many pieces your opponent's got defending a piece as well. Of course, black's not going to just leave his king sitting on that file with that rook hitting it, so using the castle. And then white finally brings out their second knight and plays knight b to d2. This is a better square than going to this c3 square, mainly because if black takes this knight, then they take back. And even though that's a fair exchange, knight for a knight, both with 3 points, white is left with what's called double pawns here on the c file. It might not be too bad, but it's just not a desirable result for white. Why should white do this when they can actually develop the knight just as good on the d2 square? And now here we've still got this thing. If black takes it, black doesn't in the game, then you can actually develop a piece for free if you wanted to take with the bishop. Or as a slightly better, would probably still be taking with the queen. Or actually, you could do a different move other than recapturing the knight. You could actually do something a little bit sneaky, actually. You could actually do bishop takes bishop. Whoa, that's a nice little move, that is. A lot of people sometimes, if they get a piece taken, the very first instinct that you have is to recapture it back straight away. And actually, you'll notice here, if we go back to this position, we can see that actually there's kind of like a mini pin on this bishop here at the moment. This bishop is, this knight moves, and the bishop behind it would be attacked. And so here, after knight b2, if we go knight takes knight, then maybe white's best move here, rather than recapturing this knight straight away, because you could recapture it like 1, 2, and 3 ways. Maybe none of them are actually any good. Maybe we'd be able to take this bishop off the board, and that would be a really good move. Because here, after, let's say this knight's got to move now, because it's going to get taken next go, so it could come back to c4. I don't think it'd be very good on c4. It might even be better taking this knight off here. It would be check, and you'd recapture with the queen. You don't want to recapture with the pawn because that would double your pawns. But now here, white's got kind of an advantage that white was aiming for at the start of the opening. And the advantage is that even though material is equal, white's actually got what's called the bishop pair. And this is something that you'll hear a lot on commentary when it happens. And you can see here that black might have a dark square bishop to face off against this dark square bishop, but the light square bishop here of white is going to be roaming the board on all the light squares. And this knight's going to struggle initially to get to every single white square to cover it. You might find that black plays a move like g6, putting the pawns on light squares. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And that's quite a deep positional idea. Put your pawns on light squares, it will push the white bishop back initially, but then if it gets towards an endgame, then you've got the thing that your pawns might be on light square level, they can be attacked by the light square bishop, and so therefore you might lose them because of that. So you have to keep both things in mind. Do you want them on light squares, or do you want to put them all maybe on dark squares so they can't get taken? And it depends on what stage of the game. I think at this stage of the game, I'd be looking to play the move g6, just to force this bishop away. It looks pretty dangerous, and I don't really know where this knight on b8 is getting developed. Actually, I mean, if it comes to c6, you could argue it's going to try and take this pawn, but the problem is white would just play pawn to c3 here, and now actually there's no chance of you taking this d4 pawn because it's protected, and this knight on c6 is kind of going to have to try and come back maybe to e7 and then maybe round to the king's side to defend, because here white's going to be threatening checkmate in one move very soon. Let's say bishop f6 happens, queen h3 or h5, well probably not h5 for a different reason, but here queen takes h7 would be checkmate. Is there an echo? There might be an echo. I'll have to watch it back and see. Maybe I need to get myself a microphone perhaps. You can tell me what sounds better. I'll purchase a microphone in the next few days and see if I can get one working, and it might sound a little bit better. Okay, so yeah, knight bd2 was played, but thank you very much for the feedback there, by the way. I will look into that. So knight b to d2. happened, and black obviously doesn't want to lose this knight on e4, because we've got 1, 2, 3 pieces attacking it now. You've only got 2 pieces defending it. Therefore, black's going to retreat this knight and plays knight back to d6. And of course here, this bishop, if it was to take this bishop here, then the knight would recapture. So this was the only move where the knight could retreat and the bishop would recapture better. Alright, good. Glad it fixed itself. Maybe it was just the way I was talking, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, so here knight goes back to d6. And white says, oh, okay, this knight on d2 here, it's blocking my c1 bishop from getting out. I also want to start bringing my pieces around to the king's side to try and attack this king up here. So he plays knight to f1. And this knight's got a kind of like a two-pronged kind of attack that it's going to try and do. So you're going to come out to g3, where it might tie up this f5 square or this h5 square. Or it could come to e3, where it's going to be potentially out this pawn, although it's easy to defend it with c6. And then f5 or g4 it might want to come to. And then once it comes to g4, we could be coming up towards h6, maybe some sort of sacrifice if black plays the move h6, for example. So this knight's got a bit of flexibility about where it can go from this point on. Black needs to start swapping off some pieces because black's a little bit behind in development. It's not easy to get black's pieces completely across to the king side. White's got a slight advantage in this position, but actually it's still very much level at this point, and black's going to try and what's called liquidate, and that means just swapping off pieces. If black gets to an endgame here, white's not got any advantage. If you swap off all the pieces apart from the kings and pawns, then it's just going to be, well, with best play it would be a draw because all the pawns are exactly the same. You could put a line of symmetry down the centre of the board, get a little mirror, and well, the pawns would be different colours though, so that wouldn't quite work. But yeah, it's a completely symmetrical position, so it's only the pieces that are changing the game at the moment. Black decides to obviously swap off and liquidate a little bit, and he plays the move c6. Obviously just defending the d5 pawn, but he's also making a little hole on this c7 square, which we'll see him use in a second. And white gets his last piece out, or his last minor piece out onto the f4 square. Black plays knight to a6, and he could have, kind of like a more normal development would have been bringing the knight to d7 and round to f6, but he's decided to go this way because actually the knight actually on this c7 square comes around to e6 here, and actually it controls a lot of important squares from that e6 square, similar to this knight coming to e3. It works the same way for black, and that's just a different manoeuvre that he's used. So even though he's moved it twice, he's got it into a really nice position. Okay, alright, good, thank you. Glad it's fixed past pawn. Thank you very much for that feedback. If it happens again, please let me know, and I'll see if I can sort something out. It might sometimes be that my computer doesn't really like streaming too much, so maybe it was a bit of lag perhaps as well. Okay, so yeah, this knight is coming to from c7 to e6, and it's going to be really strong on that square. In the meantime, though, you've just seen white play an extremely aggressive move, pawn to h4. And actually, you might have been thinking, hang on a minute, I'm doing a little bit of a counter up here. On this pawn here on h4, we've got a bishop and a queen, 2 pieces, yeah. But white is only defending it with 1 piece. So why can black not win a pawn here by doing bishop takes pawn, knight takes bishop, queen takes knight? I appreciate you giving up the bishop for the knight, but it's probably worth a pawn actually. Why can white get away with this move here at this point? So have a little look and try and see, without moving the pieces, can you work out why white can get away with this and black can't win a pawn here in this position? Well, the reason is that instead of playing knight c7, let's say, if you were to go and be a little bit greedy and take a pawn, white suckered you into their trap, because now white can take your bishop, and after queen takes knight, that queen was doing a very useful job of defending your knight on d6. So now white can go bishop takes knight d6, and all of a sudden white's piece up. Okay, they lost a pawn for it, but it's well worth it for the piece, and white's going to be winning this position 99 times out of 100 all the time. At this level, it would be resignable. It's Super Grandmaster level. So you don't want to give away pieces there. So white was being a little bit sneaky there, trying to get an attack going with h4. Well, getting an attack going with h4, trying to march this pawn up the board, gaining some space, putting this king in a little bit of pressure at the moment, and trying to make sure that he doesn't let black out of the shackles that he's got him in. So the knight comes back to c7, and then he uses the new outpost that was created by this pawn, knight to g5, to threaten checkmate in one move. If you can see the checkmate in one move, then great. By all means, shout it out or type it in the chat, or pause the video to see if you can see it. And actually the checkmate would be queen to h7, or queen takes h7, checkmate, because the king would be attacked, nowhere for it to go, it would be defended by the knight. So a quick little one move checkmate threat. I'm pretty sure that his opponent would have seen it straight away though, although every now and again some mistakes might happen, and he would have been planning for this move, as black Wang Rd5 would have been, so he decided to do bishop takes knight. And white, you could argue, has kind of been a little bit successful in getting a slight imbalance in the position now, because after bishop takes bishop, you could say, well, white's got a bishop on the board, black's got a knight on the board, so therefore there's at least something to play for, and something different to work on. And you know, the bishop can be better than the knight sometimes, but sometimes the knight can also be better than the bishop. It really does depend on the position. Black plays the move f6 because obviously his queen was attacked by this bishop. And he could have moved his queen, yes. He could have moved it forwards to the side. However, f6 seems to be a useful move, because if you think about it, white's only bishop that he's got on the board is a dark squared bishop. So if your pawns are safely put on dark squares, then they're going to be restricting the mobility and how many squares this bishop can actually go to. And the bishop retreats back to f4, and you can see it's kind of looking at these knights thinking, do I want to swap off one of those knights or not? I'm a bit unsure at the moment. Black plays queen to d7, and it's important to connect your rook. So it's almost like black's finally got out of his complete development. He's connected his rooks, he's got his pieces out, his king's relatively safe. This pawn to h4 here is kind of a bit out of place at the moment. It needs to be joined by some more pieces or some different attacking intent for it to be useful for white. But black can be quite happy with how this opening's gone, because these knights are, you know, they're very quickly they'll jump into some good squares. If you can go to e4 and e6, then this bishop's not going to have many squares it can go to. Black will have that complete e-file, even though white's got a rook on it at the moment. Black will have it closed with two knights. And also as well, you know, black could even challenge it by playing rook to e8. So, you know, I'd say that, you know, black was probably relatively happy at this point with how the game has gone. And, you know, maybe not sensing as much danger as what they could be over the next few moves. White decides to press on with his kind of semi-attack. I wouldn't call it a full attack just yet. He played knight to g3, obviously trying to get it in and amongst this king. Try and bring in his pieces closer towards the opponent's king is always a good idea. Black played rook to a to e8, obviously challenging for the e-file. You don't really want to let your opponent have an open file and then controlling it, because that's usually the point that you can invade down there. And here white decides to do a exchange of his bishop. He does bishop takes knight. Why does white play bishop takes knight here? Well, this is quite a detailed question. They're both worth the same amount of points if you're thinking about it from a different point, so it's not too bad. But I believe that he's probably seen the next continuation afterwards, and it's called a forcing continuation. One of the things that you need to do when you're new to chess is to look for forcing moves. And these are usually checks, captures, or big threats. So if you're taking a piece, if you're checking the opponent's king, or if you're threatening something really big, then they're the kind of like the main moves that you're looking at. And do any of them force your opponent to, well, all of them will force your opponent to do something back for you. For example, if we were to do a really bad move, queen takes pawn h7 check, then I'm pretty sure most of you would do king takes queen, but some of you might make a mistake and play king f7. It forces your opponent to do something. They can't just do whatever they want. I play the move a3. Black can do whatever they want now. Move the knights around, move the rooks around, move the queen or the king. So you're usually always looking for captures, checks, and threats. So here he's seen a combination which is going to get him a little bit of an advantage. He's going to try and use the fact that he's got the first move in, and therefore he's got a slight initiative, white has. And to be fair to Jan Nepomniachi, he really does take this initiative all the way down to the wire in order to win this game. So well played by him. He played his knight to bishop takes knight first. Obviously, black's got to recapture, otherwise he's going to be a piece down. And then he chooses to stick his knight into this beautiful square f5. If you were watching the stream the other day, you would have seen that I said that in the structures where we have pawns on e4 and e5, getting the knight to this square if you're white, knight to f5, or if you're black, getting the knight to f4. This is really dangerous, especially when your opponent's a castled kingside. And this knight is, obviously it's attacking the queen at the moment, which black's going to see and move the queen away. But it's also like just attacking the pawn on g7. There's possible ideas or some sort of checkmate ideas, or even coming into h6 or even e7 as well. So it's a really good piece to have. And we have a look at this knight, and we then compare it to this knight here on c7. And you can see that the c7 knight is, well, not quite as good. It's going to take a couple of moves before it can get into f4, and white might even take some preemptive measures against that and play pawn to g3 to stop it coming in. So white's seen this and expected that black moves his queen back to d7, and then white chooses to swing his queen around to h3, setting up a very sneaky tactic. If you can see the sneaky tactic, call it out, or if you can't, then pause the video if you're watching afterwards and see if you can see what trap white has set here. What is the trap that white has set? Well, white has been pretty sneaky by this move. Obviously, there's lots and lots of tactics. Yes, I'm pretty sure Kasparov and I'm pretty sure pretty much every grandmaster says that a knight on f5 if you're white is worth a lot and very dangerous. And actually, it's this knight here that's the main point to this tactic right here, because actually white is threatening to do knight to h6 check. So suppose if black was to do just a silly move, white would play knight h6 check. And okay, you're thinking, hang on a minute, that doesn't seem like a good idea because this pawn's going to take the knight. You've just lost a piece. What was the point in that? But the main idea is that it's discovered and unloaded this queen on this queen down here. So white's going to take that. Boom, you've lost your queen. I've only lost a knight. White wins from this position. Of course, the queen's actually attacking another knight as well at the same time. And so black needed to avoid this. I'm pretty sure black saw this as quite an easy tactic for a super grandmaster to see. But of course, you can already see just how there's a lot of tactics in the air about this. I mean, you didn't even need to threaten checkmate. If the queen, say, for example, was somewhere on this g file, then this pawn here on g7 would be pinned and he would have knight h6 check anyway, because the pawn wouldn't be able to take it. So there's a lot of things for why this knight on f5 is so powerful. So here, obviously, black's not going to fall into that. Yes, well done. He plays king h8 and doesn't allow this discovered check, just gets out of everything. And then here, you can see that obviously everybody's trying to fight for this knight on f5. Black wants to play this move pawn to g6 to kick the knight away. And actually, if it was black's go here, black would probably play this. And actually, I would even argue that black would be slightly better. And the reason being, let's say that white did something silly. After g6, the knight has to move. It's under attack by a pawn. The knight retreats wherever it might go to. And then actually black would take white's queen. White would have to recapture. And now we look at the pawn structure here. And you see that these white's kingside pawns are messed up. And black should be able to mop them up pretty quickly. In fact, just as a move like rook e4 looks like he puts white's pawns under a lot of pressure straight away, attacking this one and the other one that's highlighted as well at the same time. So it's this is white has to be careful here, but of course white's next move prevents black from playing g6, and he plays his pawn to h5. And you'll notice that g6, even though black could still technically play it, is not a good idea because white would take it with the pawn, and you wouldn't be able to recapture back because you've got a beautiful pin against the newly moved black king. So h5 was a good move by white, taking more space again, advancing another pawn closer to your opponent's king as well, which will give you some sort of checkmating ideas. And also, it's also getting the pawn closer towards the end of the board. We can see here already that these rooks have been eyeing each other up for a long time. They're probably going to have some swap-offs of the rooks very soon. And it's just a case of if you've got a pawn further towards the end of the board, then it might be you that wins the race towards the end of the board for queening it. There's obviously also a con with that though. If your pawn is further forward, then at the same time, could it be that black or your opponent could actually gobble that pawn up a little bit quicker than you're able to defend it? So it's a strength and could potentially be a weakness as well. So white's got to be careful he doesn't overextend. However, he plays h5 and black decides to swap off some pieces. A bit difficult to say what else for black to do in that position. And he plays rook to e8. And then we get a capture and a knight takes rook. And then here we've got this position where I've got queen and a knight against queen and a knight. Very symmetrical pawn structure. Really, the only difference is that this one's here and this one's here. And white's got just that little bit more space. And just because of this, it just means that white's got more tactics and more checkmate ideas against the black king because this pawn is here and because this knight is further forward than this knight on e8. So it's the simple piece placement and one pawn that's made a massive difference in this game. White cements his good knight on f5 and his good pawn on h5. He plays a risky move, but definitely one I'd advise in this position. He plays the move g4 and he's really going for Wang's throat here. He's basically saying, you know what? I don't need any protection from my own king. I'm not bothered about that. You're not getting into my position because your knight's too far back, your pawn's too far back. You can only really attack me with the queen quickly, and that's not going to be enough to checkmate me. You need a queen and a helper to give checkmate most of the time, and you're going to have to keep your queen back there, defending against my attack. And here, you've got a position that's typical where you've got Nepo attacking with white, and it's just a matter of time before black possibly makes a mistake, and he's going to have to play like a computer in order to draw this, or a very good player, and they are very good players, so we might have still been expecting to draw this position, but it was always going to be more pleasant for whites. Black plays the move a6, possibly running short of a few ideas, so we've kind of got this little bit of mini stalemate over here on the king's side. White doesn't know where they want to go. Black doesn't want to maybe bring his queen too far away, because if he brings his queen too far away, white's going to nip it behind him, and this queen's not really going to do too much damage. He might be able to gobble up some pawns with the black queen, but the problem is he's going to get checkmated in the meantime, so he can't really advance his pawn too far forward. So white plays b3, and the idea is that white's is kind of stuck black back on the king's side in the middle. He's now going to try and open up another front on the queen side. Black plays queen to e6. White says, you're not going to come down and check me just yet, and blocks that e-file with knight to e3. Black says, I'm getting out. I'm getting my knight out. My knight's coming to d6, and it's going to come into e4, and it's going to start attacking. And white's got to be careful here. White does not want to allow black to get his pieces active. If white allows black to get his pieces active, then black's got every chance to hold a draw, maybe even win, if white tries too hard to win himself. So he plays the move h6 and he seizes this opportunity. And that's because the knight's just come away from e8, where it was defending the g7 pawn. And this is just loosening up this black king a little bit. What's this g pawn going to do? Is it going to take? Is it going to push on? Is it going to stay there and wait to be captured? Well, Wang takes the opportunity to push forward. And here this is the bigger impact of risk or reward. If the queens and knights were to be swapped off here, black would win this endgame, because black's got a very easy plan. If the queens and knights are off the board, pawn forward again, and then the king would go to here, here, and here, g8, f7, g6, and then it would win this pawn on h6. Black would be a pawn up. There's nothing that white could do about that, and black would go on to win the game. However, with the queens and knights on, especially the queens on, this pawn gives white a lot of checkmating ideas against this black king. So if, for example, this queen was to teleport over, say, to a square like here, this would be a very good square for this queen to be, because it wouldn't quite be checkmate in this position, because black could defend with the queen, but it wouldn't be far off, because then you do queen takes here, check, and then actually check on g7. But the idea is that white doesn't want to exchange any pieces off. Black would love to exchange all the pieces off here in this position. So h6 is definitely a big decision. It's becoming a lot more popular now that people are playing this way due to AlphaZero. White chooses to play c4. He needs to just break open the position just a little bit so we can get behind black's position. Black takes White takes back, and then he plays king g8. He doesn't want his king stuck in the corner where it could get checkmated very easily. And then White plays queen to h2. And it looks like, well, why did White retreat his queen one square? That seems a little bit of a silly thing to do. And the idea is that he's putting it on the same diagonal as this knight. And the knight is currently blocking it, getting through to these squares. If it infiltrates here on c7 or b8, then White's got a very definite winning chances, if not a won game. And the way he's going to move that knight, he's going to attack it with the pawn. Not too far. He's going to push it onto c5, and that's going to be the way that White is going to break through. Black plays king to f7, and then the c5 break comes, and then the knight comes out to b5. I guess at least it stops to check on c7, but it doesn't stop queen to b8. And at this point, this game is extremely hard for Black to actually do anything. The queen's infiltrated into his position. You can see that Black might even be looking at taking this pawn, but it doesn't no good, because White's going to take this one, he's going to take this one, and once this one goes, then this h6 pawn is only 2 squares away from queen in. White's got a 1 game at that point. His king is still actually relatively safe. He's still got 2 pawns technically around it, and his knight also defending it. And this knight's just a little bit too far away to help out the black queen in attacking it. So actually, at this point, I'd even say that White's already got a winning advantage here. Black's going to defend. No, he's not going to let White just win too easily. But the problem is White's got too many pieces to attack. Now attacking this h7 pawn, he's infiltrated into the position. This h6 pawn, all the way up the board, has worked so far. King to e6, and then now you've got to start getting this net around this black king, so it can't go back to these squares because this pawn will get taken by the queen. It can't currently go to here or here or here or here because we've got all of these pieces stopping it going there, which is quite something actually. This king actually has got no good squares, so if we're able to get a check on this king, then this is actually going to be completely winning for White at that stage. So White actually plays the move pawn to f4, and this is the idea that they're going to play pawn to f5 and check this king, and the king will have to move backwards. You take this one, and then this h6 pawn will win you the game by getting to the end of the board very quickly. The problem is, though, of course, that it's not that simple, because Black has been fighting back, and some of you would have noticed that actually the pawn here on d4 is attacked twice, and actually does get captured. So here, Black does knight takes pawn. Can you, maybe in chat, or if you want to stop the video, tell me why queen takes pawn was not played in the game? And that's going to be a terrible move. Can you see why queen takes pawn was not played in the game? What would White have played if White played queen takes pawn d4? So you might have guessed it right. After queen takes pawn d4, looks like a good move initially, attacking the knight on e3, which is unguarded. In fact, there's a pin there all the way to the king, attacking c5 pawn, attacking the f4 pawn. Looks like a great move, but there's a massive problem with it, and the idea is that you can go queen to e8, checkmate. The king is in the centre of the board, can't move to here, its own pawn's in the way, the queen attacks the king. Obviously the queen also covers d7, e7 and f7, and we already kind of established that all of these squares here, the knight's covering 2 of them, and this pawn here that we just moved covers the other one, because the pawn that we just lost was originally covering it. And also it can't go to the side because of this pawn. So actually, that is a really nice checkmate in the centre of the board. And that's why he took with the knights. But I think he kind of realised it might have been all over here. We have a little bit of repetition. If you've been, well done, passport, got it right. If you've seen the move number, and the move number we're currently on is 35, and so you're going to see a bit of repetition now before White does the winning combination. And the reason for that is that at move 40, they get extra time on their clock. So White wants to get as close to the time control as possible, just to double check a few things and make sure he's correct in his calculations, rather than going for the winning combination straight away. So we get queen check. Obviously, you can't go backwards. Well, you could go backwards with the king, just be a bad idea, because then we snaffle this pawn. Again, h pawn runs. So therefore, he blocks with the queen. Queen to here check. Again, the only other move other than queen there is king to e7, but that way we lose this pawn. And then if that pawn goes, then this pawn would go. You could swap queens and possibly even win an endgame. So he blocks with the queen again. Queen check again. And we're just wasting a little bit of time here, repeating the position a couple of times. And it's key here that the position is not repeated once more, because if he played queen to g8 check again, then actually it would be the position would be repeated 3 times, and black could claim a draw at that point. So here he needed to do something a little bit different. It's moved 39, so he got himself a little bit closer to the time control, and he decided to go for it with the winning move. I wonder if you can see what the winning move actually is. You might need to take a couple of minutes for this one, so if you are watching afterwards, then pause the video and see what should white play here to win this game. It's a little bit of diversion, shall we say. So the move is f5 check, and this is a really nasty move to face for black, because see the king is kind of defending the queen here, so the king kind of can't move back to this f7 square because the queen would just be lost. Also, the king does not want to go back to e7, because if it goes back to e7, well, in this position you could even contemplate maybe swapping queens and then doing pawn takes pawn here. And after, well, let's say a recapture, again, this pawn can't be stopped. This knight's too far away. There's also, though, a slightly different variation where after black takes, white takes back with the pawn. And if we go back to e7 now, then we haven't got this recapture here because the pawns are gone. And actually, all white needs to do here, I think queen g8 is probably fine. And also, there's no good way for black to actually defend this pawn on h7. At least I can't see a good way for black to do that. And this would be a really... Well, this pawn's just too close to queen. It's just winning the game in every single variation. And there's no way to defend it. And the only other move that black has here that makes a little bit of sense is to do knight takes pawn. Because we would have forgotten here that black was already 1 pawn up. Now he's actually got 2 pawns. And here we do queen takes queen, king takes queen, knight takes knight. And even though we've got a knight and 3 pawns against a king and 5 pawns, so 2 pawns for the knight is just far too strong. And here at this point, black actually resigned after this move, and this was the end of the game. Why was this the end of the game? Why did black not play on? Because I'm telling you, if I was playing this against somebody in the local league, I was black here, I'd be playing on from this position. And I think the main reason is yet again, and I'm kind of sick of saying it really, is that this pawn on h6 is just too close to queening. So it's very easy to see a situation where maybe black plays like king to e5, bringing your king to the centre of the board, and then game's generally a good idea, but of course you could go hunting after some pawns, which would make a lot of sense actually. But the problem is, as soon as this black king comes across here, it's just going to create a massive opening for white. So white will just play knight to this square. And all white's going to do is they're going to move the knight to f6, take this pawn on h7, move the knight out of the way, and then 1-2, and it's already got a queen, and then the queen can mop up the rest of the pawns for it. And white is just too fast in this attack, so there's nothing that black can do about it. And the other option for black, I guess, is to maybe keep the king around this area to try and stop the knight getting in, maybe pawn forward. But the problem is, if he just tries to play pawn forward, white's just going to bring his king close in. He can never come this way, he can never come across to the queen side. You can't actually do anything with these pawns. And this is really important actually. We've got 2 white pawns here holding up 3 of black pawns. So it's almost as if white's not even a pawn down on that side of the board. And the reason is that obviously the A pawns will match up against each other, but we have here this dynamic where this pawn on the 5th rank is blocking 2 pawns. And it's blocking them because obviously if you move 1 square, it would just take. But again, If you move 2 squares, then you can take en passant. If you don't know much about en passant, get Googling it or get looking at the light chess lessons on it to make sure that you remember it here. But here you've got 2 pawns being held up by 1 pawn. So actually it's only this guy versus the knight, and this pawn on f5's got no chance. So whatever black does here, okay, maybe you could even advance the pawn. It doesn't really matter. You could even do knight to here now. And black's just too slow in every case. You could take here, you could take here, and then you'd probably go something like check. And then knight to g5. You can see this knight's going to take the h pawn. And this pawn can do whatever it wants. The problem is, this pawn's just going to be so much faster, getting to the end of the board. You could even probably take time out to stop this pawn getting to the end if you wanted to. So that was quite an easy endgame for a Super Grandmaster to win. I definitely would have played it out though, maybe a few more moves. But these guys, they definitely know what they're doing a lot more than me, so they can see it in advance quite easily, and they probably want to go back to their hotel and get some rest ready for the game next day. So that's really the end of the game there. Jan Nepomniachi had another fine victory for him. At the time it was in round 5. He would go on the next round to beat Ding, so he would have beaten the 2 Chinese players in a row and go on to lead the tournament before losing the last game before they stopped to Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. So he's still in the lead, but joint with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And actually the candidates has been postponed. So there's not going to be going on for much for quite a few months now until the situation around the world is improved. But I'll be streaming every day at 3 o'clock, just going through one of the games from the candidates, just to give some people to look at if they want to still do some chess. I hope that you've enjoyed the stream. If you want to follow me on lychess.org, my nickname is Welsh White Singe. And of course, subscribe to the Twitch stream, follow me, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for listening.